Okay. No, thank you, Tammy, for organizing this. I think it's a very important discussion. In fact, what actually triggered this discussion is that I've been following some discussions on social media and in other platforms as well, where members of particular professional regulatory bodies were seemingly discontent or not happy about their regulatory bodies. So in the midst of those discussions, I then requested you, Tam, to organize this discussion so that we can try to iron out some of and debunk some of the myths and the misinformation, perhaps, which were part of those discussions. So I think it's going, just to start off, I think it's going to be very important. Perhaps if I can just, our colleagues that will be answering my questions today, they can just start off by just outlining what are the roles and responsibilities of regulatory bodies and the VAs, and how should the relationship between the regulatory body and the VA look like?
Petra, we're gonna give you the first bite to this, as it says, ladies first. So we wanna honor that. If you would define to us the relationship between VAs and regulatory bodies and what the roles are as far as you understand this?
Well, to me, the regulatory bodies basically are there to uphold the proposed mandates from the government, and they have that role to fulfill and to control and regulate the industry to the best of their ability. The voluntary associations basically should be assisting and partnering with them to the best of their ability within their membership base, in the form of communicating with their membership base and supporting them with events and functions, and supporting them in the sense of assisting in disseminating information, assisting with running surveys, basically assisting in relaying the information through from regulatory bodies through to the membership and communicating important information. But it's also a two-way flow of also communicating from the VA associations back through to the regulatory bodies, to communicate from our members to the regulatory bodies in terms of membership issues or concerns from the industry, and actual on-the-ground challenges that the industry is facing, so that they can be brought to the attention of the regulatory bodies, in fact, what is actually happening on the ground, and how the regulations are actually either restricting or enabling the actual running of sites or the progress that can actually be happening on site, as well as, most importantly, health and safety issues and concerns around that. I found that to be a really important factor. So that is, in my opinion, the ideal, and it is the most important thing around that is the communication that should be happening. And to strike that balance is obviously really hard to do, because of often it's just perhaps a legacy of miscommunication and misunderstanding. But it's really important to open those lines of communication and for all parties to be heard. That's in a nutshell my understanding of it, and what we endeavour to do with regulatory bodies.
Okay, thank you. Wafigile?
Thanks, Tammy, and for organizing this conversation, and Mlondi, for your questions. Well, in addition to what Petra has already said, my starting point is that regulatory bodies, unlike voluntary associations, as the name suggests for voluntary associations, regulatory bodies are creatures of statute. They are created by acts of legislation in Parliament, And you refer to stakeholders, I don't know, on social media. From what you've read, people are unhappy, disgruntled. They can hold us accountable by making sure or challenging and interrogating if we are acting according to the acts that the various pieces of legislation that established regulatory bodies. And so why do they exist? Well, for a few reasons, to ensure competency standards and that people who practice in a particular profession are actually qualified and competent to do so. They publish a code of conduct for the protection of the public, because the acts are very consistent in that the councils that sit in those bodies are acting in the interest of the public. Because sometimes there's this notion that, yeah, you know, why must I apply for professional membership with the SSCP-CMP? What is it going to do for me? Why not like for a benefit organization, for personal benefit? Yes, there's personal prestige around being professionally registered, but it's about competency standards, code of conduct, ensuring that there's rules and criteria for continuing professional development, and making sure that the programs that are being taught at universities continue to be relevant to industry expectations, and therefore, I don't know to what extent the various regulatory bodies are doing this, but there's also a strong element of research that is needed. And then the other thing that I won't go into, but it's quite contentious and it's gone on for a long time in South Africa, is the identification of work. Who is legally allowed or permitted to perform certain professional work or classified work? Of course, the Competition Commission sees that as an uncompetitive practice, as exclusionary, and therefore the issues of transformation are central to the functioning and work of the regulatory bodies. Petra referred to partnerships between regulatory bodies and voluntary association. That is, for me, the operative word, because I haven't read the acts that establish other regulatory bodies out of the 6 that we have in South Africa. But the one that I'm involved with is very specific about the regulatory body's obligation and expectation to consult meaningfully with voluntary associations within their ambit or purview, because it is in voluntary associations that the registered persons, that the regulatory bodies are meant to register and make sure that are there and are competent and can perform the work, reside in terms of issues of commerce and trade in the voluntary associations. Regulatory bodies by design, yes, issues of trade and commerce and commercial aspects are important for registered persons because the two are linked, but they don't necessarily were established for that purpose. That is a voluntary association function for consultation, for communication, like Petra said, and for the partnership where frustrations are communicated, resolved, so that there is a smooth working relationship between the practitioners in the voluntary associations as registered persons having been registered by that specific regulatory body. So I don't know if that provides enough of a distinction for you, Mlondi.
Yes, well, yeah, I think you actually covered it very well.